Greetings Realm Lords, Corbrix here, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the rules that I just tweaked ever so slightly in my massive LEGO wargame. I know, after reading some of the comments on my combat videos and kind of thinking a little bit more critically about my combat, I felt like there were a few overly complicated rules in there, and I don't know who'd have thought that a massive LEGO wargame like this would have some overly complicated rules in it. Shocker, I know. So I was thinking and doing some reflecting and I wanted to remedy some of that. Not a ton, so don't worry. If the complex combat really appealed to you, I'm keeping a lot of those mechanics in play. But I'm trying to get rid of some unnecessary complexity. So first, let's talk a little bit about nighttime. So if you remember from my other video, there were two big penalties to fighting at night. So one is that your attack is reduced by your precision rating, and then the second one was that any wounds that could be dealt to you from your defender would be reduced by precision rating as well. That second bit about the defense was really excessive. And quite frankly, it's a younger rule. For most of the history of playing this game, Knight only penalized the attacker, it did not penalize the defender. I only added the penalty to the defender when I switched to a system where everyone was rolling one die. So originally, if we go back to when I was playing this game in high school and before then, attackers and defenders would just roll however many dice it took to get to a good, clean combination to hit the number. So for example, if you had an attack of 24 in total, then you rolled 4 6-sided dice, or 3 8-sided dice, whatever we had lying around. Now I think I mentioned this in my other video, but you ended up with some really wonky statistics there. There's a big difference really between rolling a single 24-sided die and 4 6-sided dice. And rolling those multiple dice actually ended up adding an insulation for the attacker. So even though the attacker was penalized that night, the odds of the attacker rolling a really bad number were so low because of the multiple dice involved in that roll. Now in college, I switched to everyone rolling one die. And because of that, because you could get so wonky with your attacks, your odds of rolling a 1 were just as high as your odds of rolling an 18, then I needed to make an adjustment to protect the attacker at night. Otherwise, no one would be attacking at night, and I didn't want that to happen. Now, of course, fast forward to today, and if you remember the way I was explaining the rules, the attacker actually rolls 2 dice now every time. They roll their base attack, and they roll their weapon attack. So our attacker is back up to rolling multiple dice. And so what that means to me is our attacker has some protection against getting hurt on the defensive roll, just built into the probability. And so the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking, why the heck do we still have this penalty to the defender harming the attacker? Let's keep it simple. The attack is reduced by your precision rating at night. Defense functions the way it always does. Now, do I think that this will pan out in an actual game? Well, yeah, I know it will pan out in an actual game actually, because if you look in front of me, this table looks a little bit messy. Not messy per se, but there's a lot going on here. We got people over here, we got people over there, we got a building here. And that is because we just finished a game of the Circle of Realms using this new rule, and it was quite simple. I've got a few adjustments to make in attack values for individual units, but it doesn't really look like I need to have any complex rules going on at night for those defense rolls. So that's change number 1. Change number 2 has to do with getting these +1, -1 modifiers when you are attacking enemy units. I asked my players how they felt before we started playing, how they felt in general about momentum rules, that idea of moving up and down and how that could affect how much damage you're dealing. And just in general, the consensus was, it's just, it's another extra thing to think about, another thing that makes the game a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And so what I decided to do was I wiped out momentum completely as a concept. And I also revised the way that height advantage works in general. So height advantage now, much simpler. If a unit is standing above another unit, basically, then they get height advantage. They don't need to be cleanly above the top of their heads. Basically, the bottom of the figure needs to be higher than the bottom of their target, and the top of the figure needs to be higher than the top of their target. That might sound a little bit complicated, but really all it means is that we got Lysander standing on a horse, and he is attacking King Sepith here. Then he's got a height advantage on King Sepith because he's standing above Sepith. But say he's not fighting Sepith, say instead he's fighting our giant spider. He's fighting Sinlash, the giant spider. If he's fighting him, then sure, Lysander is technically standing above Sinlash, but Sinlash himself is still taller than Lysander. This is kind of a poor example because they're coming out pretty close in height, but still, Sinlash is taller than Lysander, and so he doesn't get height advantage against Sinlash. Basically, you can't get height advantage if the unit you're attacking is still physically above you. So yeah, those are basically the two big changes I made to combat before I started playing this last game of the Circle of Realms. Now there's some other changes I've decided to make since then. I don't think they necessarily pertain to combat, but some other stuff about the mechanics of my game. But I need to do more thinking and reflecting on those and a little bit more experimenting with them before I reveal exactly what all those changes are going to be. But yeah, please let me know what your thoughts are on these rule changes in the comments below. Let me know if they've got other rules I've gone over where you're like, oh, this should be changed. Oh, this is too complicated. Go ahead and hit me with all your thoughts. Obviously, I can't guarantee I'm going to change everything. You're never going to get me to get rid of my collection of different dice that I use for this game, for example. That's just, I love it. That's not going away. But you know, above all else, I want the game to be fun. So if there's something getting in the way of that fun, let me know. Otherwise, my friends, be happy, be healthy, be well, and I'll see you here next time in the Circle of Realms.